2026 is not the year you wait for permission. It's the year you take control. Ladies and gentlemen, 2026 is not just another year. It is a line in the sand. Some people will cross into it prepared, focused, and dangerous to mediocrity. Others will stumble into it hoping, wishing, praying that something magically changes. Let me ask you a question. What if 2026 is the year you stop reacting and start commanding your life? Because hear me clearly, your future does not respond to wishes. It responds to decisions. Your results are not the problem. Your identity is you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of who you believe you are. If you see yourself as average, you'll sabotage excellence. If you see yourself as powerful, disciplined, and unstoppable, your behavior will follow. 2026 demands a new version of you, not a motivated you, a decided you. Blame is expensive. It costs you your future. The moment you say, it's my fault, is the moment you gain control. No more blaming the economy. No more blaming your past. No more blaming people who didn't believe in you. You don't need permission to win. You need ownership. Unclear goals create unclear actions, and unclear actions create average lives. Write it down. See it clearly. Say it boldly. If someone asked you, what exactly do you want in 2026, would you answer? With power or hesitation? Clarity is not optional. Clarity is currency. Talent starts races. Discipline finishes them. You don't need more motivation. You need a system. You don't need hype. You need habits. Do the boring work. Do it daily. Do it even when nobody is watching. That's how ordinary people build extraordinary lives. Your life moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts. Why? Watch what you listen to, who you allow access to your mind. If the input is weak, the output will be weak. In 2026, stop feeding distractions and start feeding vision. Confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. Waiting to feel ready is how dreams die quietly. Take the step, make the call, launch the plan. Fear is not a stop sign, it's a green light. Unstoppable people do. And quit when it's hard. They quit when they're done. They don't negotiate with excuses. They don't lower standards to feel comfortable. They show up, they level up, they execute again and again. Let me leave you with this. 2026 will not be easier, but you can be stronger. The question is not, can you win? The question is, will you decide to? Because once you do, nothing can stop you. BFO. Anything in your life changes on the outside, something must change on the inside. Most people try to fix results without ever addressing identity, and that is why they keep repeating the same cycles. Action without identity is temporary. Identity without alignment creates conflict. But when identity comes first, action becomes automatic. You will never consistently act in a way that contradicts how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will subconsciously create struggle. If you see yourself as average, you will eventually retreat from excellence, even when opportunity is right in front of you. This is not because you lack talent or intelligence, but because your identity will always pull you back to what feels familiar. Identity is the invisible thermostat of your life. You can force action for a while just like you can force heat into a cold room, but if the thermostat is set low, the temperature will always drop back down. That thermostat is who you believe you are. Until it changes, your effort will always fight resistance. This is why discipline feels hard for some people and natural for others. It's not willpower, it's self-image. A person who identifies as disciplined doesn't wake up debating whether to show up. They simply do. A person who identifies as confident doesn't wait for permission, they move. Behavior follows belief every single time. If you want a different level of results in 2026, you must ask a deeper question than what should I do? You must ask, who must I become? Because the moment you decide who you are, your standards change, your boundaries change, your habits change, and when your standards change, your future has no choice but to follow. Most people wait for results to validate their identity. That's backwards. Winners decide first. They decide they are committed before motivation shows up. They decide they are leaders before recognition arrives. They decide they are disciplined before life gets EA. Sigh. That decision creates alignment, and alignment creates momentum. When identity shifts, excuses disappear. You stop negotiating with weakness because it no longer fits who you are. You stop explaining your goals to people who don't understand because your self-belief no longer needs validation. You move differently, speak differently, and think differently, not because someone told you to, but because it matches your internal standard. Identity before action means you don't chase confidence, you practice congruence. You become the type of person who keeps promises to themselves. You act in private the same way you want to be seen in public. And over time, that consistency builds unshakable confidence. This is not about pretending or affirming things you don't believe. It's about choosing an identity and proving it to yourself through aligned action. Every small win becomes evidence. Every disciplined choice reinforces belief. And eventually, the new identity becomes permanent. 2026 does not require a new strategy as much as it requires a new self-concept. Because once you upgrade who you believe you are, the actions you've been struggling to force will start to feel natural. And when action becomes natural, success stops being a fight and starts becoming a pattern. Extreme ownership begins the moment you stop asking who is responsible and start accepting that it's you. Not your circumstances, not your past, not the people who failed you or the systems that slowed you down. The fastest way to lose power is to give responsibility away. The fastest way to gain it is to take it all back. Most people don't realize that blame feels good in the moment but costs everything in the long run. Blame protects the ego, but it robs the future. Every time you point outward, you disconnect yourself from the only thing you can control, your response. Ownership, on the other hand, is uncomfortable at first, but it is the doorway to freedom. Because once you own the problem, you also own the solution. Extreme ownership means you stop waiting for ideal conditions. You stop saying when things change, I'll change. Leaders move first. Winners adjust faster. They understand that life doesn't respond to fairness, it responds to responsibility. The person who accepts full accountability always moves ahead of the person who waits to be understood. This level of ownership requires maturity. It requires you to look at your results without excuses and say, this is mine, not in shame, but in strength, because me says, I am the problem. Ownership says, I have the power. That distinction changes everything. One paralyzes you, the other activates you. When you practice extreme ownership, your language changes. You stop saying they didn't let me and start saying I didn't find a way. You stop saying I didn't have time and start saying I didn't make it a priority. These shifts may sound small, they are massive. Words shape perception, and perception shapes behavior. Ownership also eliminates entitlement. You stop expecting life to reward effort alone and start focusing on results. You understand that the world doesn't owe you understanding, applause, or opportunity. It responds to value, consistency, and execution. That mindset sharpens you. It makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Extreme ownership doesn't mean you blame yourself for everything emotionally. It means you take responsibility strategically. You ask better questions. What could I have done differently? What skill do I need to develop? What standard do I need to raise? Those questions move you forward instead of trapping you in frustration. Once you adopt this mindset, obstacles stop being roadblocks, and you start becoming feedback. Failure stops being personal and starts becoming data. You no longer waste energy defending yourself. You invest energy improving yourself. That shift compounds over time and separates people who grow from people who repeat the same year over and over. In 2026, extreme ownership will be the dividing line between those who feel stuck and those who feel in control, because control doesn't come from dominance over others. It comes from mastery over self. And the moment you take full responsibility for your life, you stop waiting to be saved and start building the future you want on purpose, with power, and without excuses. Clarity is the starting point of all power. Confusion weakens execution, drains energy, and keeps people busy without making them effective. The mind is unclear, action becomes scattered. Effort increases, but progress slows. That is why so many people work hard yet feel stuck. They are moving, but not in a clear direction. Clarity removes friction. When you know exactly what you want, decisions become simpler and faster. You stop debating with yourself. You stop hesitating. You stop reacting to everything around you and start respond. Ding to what actually matters. Clear direction turns motion into momentum. Most people underestimate how exhausting indecision is. Every unclear goal forces the brain to constantly renegotiate commitment. Should I do this or that? Is this the right path? Am I too late or too early? That mental noise steals focus and confidence. Clarity quiets the mind and concentrates power. Clear people move differently. They don't chase every opportunity, they filter them. They don't say yes to everything, they protect their energy. They don't confuse activity with progress, because when you are clear, you understand that saying no is not loss, it is strategy. Clarity also strengthens discipline. When your goal is vague, discipline feels forced. When your goal is specific, discipline feels purposeful. You are no longer sacrificing comfort for nothing. You are trading it for something meaningful. Purpose gives pain a reason, and that reason makes consistency possible. Without clarity, comparison becomes dangerous. You start measuring your life against other people's timelines, goals, and definitions of success. Clarity eliminates comparison because you are no longer running someone else's race. You are committed to your own path, your own pace, and your own standard. Clarity creates emotional stability. When you know where you are going, temporary setbacks lose their power to discourage you. You may get delayed, but you don't get lost. You may get tired, but you don't quit. Unclear people panic under pressure. Clear people adjust and keep moving. This level of clarity does not come from thinking harder. It comes from deciding deeper. It requires honesty about what you truly want, not what sounds impressive to others. It requires alignment between your values and your goals. When those two are disconnected, motivation collapses. When they align, effort becomes sustainable. Clarity also sharpens focus by exposing distractions for what they are. Not everything that feels urgent, important. Not everything that looks productive moves you forward. When you are clear, distractions lose their appeal because they don't serve the destination. In 2026, clarity will be a competitive advantage. While others stay overwhelmed, overcommitted, and uncertain, the clear-minded will execute with precision. Power does not come from doing more. It comes from doing the right things with intention. And the clearer your vision becomes, the more force you can apply in the right direction, until progress becomes inevitable and success becomes repeatable. Discipline is the quiet force that builds results long before anyone notices. Motivation is loud, emotional, and temporary. It shows up when conditions feel right and disappears the moment discomfort arrives. Discipline doesn't wait for the perfect mood. It moves regardless of how you feel. That is why discipline outperforms motivation every single time. Motivation depends on emotion, and emotion is unstable. Some days you feel driven, confident, and ready. Other days you feel tired, distracted, or discouraged. If your progress depends on motivation, your results will always be inconsistent. Discipline creates consistency, and consistency is what turns effort into outcomes. Disciplined people don't rely on excitement to take action. They rely on standards. They decide in advance what must be done, and then they do it. There is no internal debate every morning, no negotiation with comfort, no waiting for inspiration. The decision has already been made. That removes friction and preserves energy. Discipline is not punis. It is structure. It is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters most repeatedly. It simplifies life. Instead of constantly choosing, you follow a system. Instead of chasing motivation, you build routines. Those routines compound quietly until results become undeniable. Many people misunderstand discipline as restriction, but true discipline creates freedom. When you control our habits, your time opens up. When you control your actions, your future expands. Lack of discipline may feel good in the moment, but it always creates pressure later. Discipline may feel uncomfortable now, but it removes pressure tomorrow. Discipline also builds self-trust. Every time you do what you said you would do, even when it's hard, your confidence grows. Not the loud, emotional kind of confidence, but the calm, grounded kind. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. Motivation wants quick rewards. Discipline plays the long game. Motivation looks for results immediately. Discipline understands delay. It knows that progress often happens quietly before it becomes visible. That patience is what allows disciplined people to stay consistent, while others quit too early. When discipline becomes your foundation, setbacks lose their power. You don't quit because of a bad day. You don't spiral because of a mistake. You simply return to the standard. Discipline creates emotional resilience because your behavior is no longer controlled by temporary feelings. In 2026, the people who win will not be the most talented or the most inspired. They will be the most consistent. They will show up on ordinary days, boring days, difficult days. They will do the work even when no one is watching and no applause is coming. Discipline over motivation means you stop waiting to feel ready and start acting because it's required. You don't chase momentum, you create it. And once discipline is locked in, success stops being a question of if and becomes a matter of when. Your environment is silently shaping you every single day, whether you are aware of it or not. Long before discipline fails or motivation fades, environment is already influencing your choices. What you see, hear, and experience repeatedly becomes normal, and whatever feels normal eventually becomes your standard. That is how destiny is formed. Not in one big moment, but through daily exposure. Most people try to change their lives without changing their surroundings, and that creates constant resistance. They want new habits, but stay in old environments. They want higher standards, but remain surrounded by low expectations. Over time, the environment always wins. Not because people are weak, but because humans are adaptive by nature. Your environment includes more than physical space. It includes the people you interact with, the conversations you entertain, the content you consume, and the routines you repeat. Every one of these elements is either reinforcing growth or reinforcing stagnation. There is no neutral environment. Everything is training you in a direction. People influence behavior more than advice ever will. You will naturally rise or fall to the level of the expectations around you. If discipline is rare in your circle, it will feel extreme when you practice it. If growth is mocked, progress will feel lonely. That social pressure is subtle but powerful, and ignoring it is costly. Environment also shapes belief. When you are constantly exposed to limitation, your thinking shrinks. When you are exposed to possibility, your thinking expands. This is why changing your inputs can create faster transformation than trying to force willpower. Your mind mirrors what it repeatedly absorbs. Physical environment matters as well. Disorder creates distraction. Clutter creates mental noise. A chaotic space makes focused execution harder than it needs to be. When your environment is designed for clarity and efficiency, discipline becomes easier, and consistency feels natural. The most strategic individuals don't rely solely on self-control. They design environments that support their goals. They remove friction from good habits and add friction to bad ones. They place reminders where they can be seen and remove temptations where they can't be accessed. It's not weakness, it is wisdom. Environment also determines what feels possible. When you see others executing at a high level, excellence stops feeling intimidating and starts feeling normal. Proximity expands perception. You don't need more belief, you need better exposure. Seeing what is possible changes what you attempt. In 2026, your environment will either pull you forward or hold you back. The people you keep, the information you consume, and the standards you tolerate will quietly decide your trajectory. Destiny is not decided by intention alone. It is shaped by what you allow to surround you daily. Change the environment, and the future begins to change automatically. Faith without action is comfortable belief, and action without faith is exhausting effort. Transformation, only H, happens when the two work together. Faith gives direction, meaning, and endurance. Action gives evidence, momentum, and results. When either one is missing, growth stalls. When both are present, change becomes inevitable. Faith is not passive optimism or wishful thinking. It is the decision to believe in an outcome before there is proof. It is choosing trust over fear when logic alone is not enough. But faith was never designed to replace action. It was designed to fuel it. True faith moves. It steps forward even when the path is unclear. Action, on the other hand, without faith becomes mechanical and draining. You work, but you don't feel connected to the outcome. You grind, but you doubt the reward. That internal conflict slowly erodes consistency. Faith gives action meaning. It reminds you why the effort matters and why quitting is not an option. Transformation requires the courage to act before certainty arrives. Waiting for guarantees keeps people stuck in preparation mode. Growth demands movement in uncertainty. Faith provides the confidence to move without seeing the full picture. Action provides the clarity that only comes after movement begins. Faith also strengthens resilience. When setbacks occur, faith reframes them. Instead of seeing failure as final, you see it as feedback. Instead of interpreting delays as denial, you see them as development. That perspective keeps you in motion when others lose momentum. Action is where belief becomes visible. Every step taken reinforces faith, and every small win builds conviction. Doubt shrinks when progress appears. Momentum replaces hesitation. Over time, belief stops being theoretical and becomes experiential. You no longer hope it will work. You know it will. This balance eliminates extremes. Faith keeps you from burning out. Action keeps you from drifting. Together, they create alignment between intention and behavior. You are no longer just believing for change or working for change. You are participating in it. In 2026, transformation will not belong to those who only believe or only hustle. It will belong to those who trust enough to move and move enough to prove their trust was justified. Faith sets the direction. Action closes the distance. And when both are practiced consistently, change stops being a possibility and becomes a pattern that reshapes your life from the inside out. As we step toward 2026, understand this clearly. Nothing changes by accident. The year itself holds no power. You do. Your identity, your ownership, your clarity, your discipline, your environment, and your faith in motion are the tools that decide the OU. When these align, progress stops being random and starts becoming intentional. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become more of who you were meant to be, with higher standards, stronger boundaries, and decisive action. The version of you that survives another year is not enough. The version of you that leads, executes, and commits is the one that transforms your future. 2026 will challenge you, but it will also reveal you. It will expose your excuses or elevate your execution. It will reward preparation, consistency, and courage. The question is not whether opportunity will appear. It always does. The question is whether you will be ready when it does. So make the decision now, not later, not when it feels easier. Decide that 2026 is the year you stop waiting, stop negotiating, and stop settling. Take control, raise the standard, move with purpose, and commit to becoming unstoppable, not for applause, not for approval, but because your future demands it. The door is open. The moment is now. Step forward and make 2026 the year your life changes, or good.